Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's virtual edition of Rugby League Outlaws. Terry's away, so I've reached out to some good mates to join me tonight to co-host the show. Now, if you're looking for a joke this week, Newcastle? Joining us first up is a good friend of the show. We know him as Soulsy. You know him as Mike from the Green Machine podcast, mate. Thanks for jumping on. Let's get straight into it. Lachlan Galvin is, again, dominating the headlines. The Tigers have recalled him to play my Sharks. What are your thoughts on the entire situation before we get into the nitty-gritty?
Mate, I'll tell you, this is one of those things that I don't really know what to make of it, because on one side I see a 19-year-old kid who all he's done is said, don't offer me any money because I want to go elsewhere. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. And then on the other hand, his manager is one of the biggest pieces of work in rugby league, a guy who's already had his accreditation ripped up once and somehow managed to worm his way back into it. But the stories about Isaac Moses are never good. And man, it seems like a bit of a piece of shit, personally. We've had horrible dealings with him at the Raiders. This is a bloke who was agitating for John Bateman to get out of his contract or get an upgrade on his contract on grand final week in 2019. He's just a piece of, and anyone who's associated with him, I kind of have less time for. So even though Lockie Galvin's only 19, I think he needs better management.
Oh, 100% agree, mate. I've been back and forward on this so many times. I was on Galvin's side early, then I was on the Tigers side, and then every day it seems to flip and flop. But we could go down a rabbit hole here. The West Tigers, after dropping him last week, and it wasn't form-related because I maintain he was their best player, not named Terrell May. It's been recalled against the Sharks. My theory is that they saw last week of what Adam Dewey did in the 7 and said, oh, we need to swallow our pride and get Galvin back. Would you be recalling him if you were a Tiger?
Mate, I think this situation's really tricky. And because, first of all, I'd say have some balls and show some conviction and stick with your dropping of him. If it's untenable and your senior players 1 week don't want him in the side, what's changed in a week that's brought him back other than having a loss? That's like, have it, show a few cojones there and actually stick with it. What makes me wonder, though, is I'm starting to think the whole thing is a damn PR campaign from both sides, because you've got Isaac Moses sending letters of legal threat to do with bullying. The West Tigers basically being told not to say anything in the middle of a press conference. Don't, like, on the weekend, they're like, no, just don't mention it. And I reckon everyone's trying to play the game at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, how can he be bullied? We've brought him back into first grade this week. Like, it was just because of this. Like, it all feels like it's a public PR battle between Galvin and Moses and the West Tigers, and I'm here for it. I'm here for chaos at the West Tigers. It sells papers. I'm on board.
It's fun, and you took the words right out of my mouth. You see exactly what I see. This bullying thing came out. They're like, oh, let's put him back in first grade. Because don't get me wrong, there were a lot of fans last week that backed the decision. I was one of them, not a fan, but I backed it, because if he turns up, that's all people are talking about all day. We saw more people turn up in media polos at Lidcombe Oval for the West game than there were fans. And that's not a shot at the fans. They always get out and support. But it was a circus, and they needed to get rid of him for a week. Now, these Tigers players have posted ridiculous things that I personally have no problem with, but I'm not a 19-year-old kid. I'm a bloke who doesn't care what people say on social media. I think that's pretty obvious. But they've gone, well, let's put him back in the team now, because 1, he's better than Adam Dewey, and 2, he's back now. All is forgiven. You're right. It's been a week. Nothing has changed. Do you think he's on the way to Parramatta?
It certainly seems that way, with the sneaky one being the Bulldogs. It sounds like Moses is pulling chains, and he's just trying to get his client over to another club that he's halfway running, like he's done with Manly. I'm so glad that the Raiders have basically just gone, we're not dealing with this guy. The Roosters have done the same thing. We're not dealing with this guy. And to be honest, the more clubs that decide to run this bloke out of town, the better, because he's He just feels like a menace. But I'll be honest, he's probably a bloody good manager as far as getting money for his clients. Do you know what I mean? Like, because he's obviously, he knows that, but he's not playing the game. He's playing a dirty game every single time, it seems, or any time that's to his advantage. Do you know what I mean? Likes to build up, get a lot of players in clubs. You always hear about saying, oh, well, I've got this coach, I've got this player, I've got this player. And basically, when a player manager's got more control over a club than the coach has, that's a concern, you know? Like, so I'd be real, you know, concerned about signing any player with Moses attached to him. But he's obviously got a decent relationship with Parramatta for the moment. But it's Gus Gould and all the talking up of young Lachlan Galvin from Gus Gould that makes me go, oh, is there something from left field there? Like, we were told late last year that we had all but signed Leo Thompson at the Raiders. And then all of a sudden, last second, he's like, oh, no, I'm going to the Bulldogs. And we're like, oh, okay. It was a done deal, apparently, and now it's not. Gus Gould is a shrewd operator, and it would not surprise me. I'd say favourites are Para, but yeah, I would not be surprised to see the Bulldogs come in and sneak under the radar there.
It's good shout. I think Moses has used this kid as a pawn. That's what they get paid to do, mate, because if he was no good, he'd have no clients. But let's move on to your boys. I'm happy to eat a bit of crow here. Full disclosure, for anyone new to the channel, first of all, welcome. I said the Raiders will make the 8, and I said that with conviction. Right now, they've spent the opening 7 weeks feeding me crow, mate. What's your take on the Raiders? How do you see them sitting? Where are they going? We spoke a bit off screen, and I was like, if you want to lay in, go ahead. This is your chance.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. If you told me at the start of the year that the Raiders weren't going to make the 8 at the end of it, I couldn't be too critical, because there was some trends last year that made me go, okay, we look like we're not doing that great. But what annoys me is the absolute hypocritical bullshit that I'm seeing from a lot of media. Like, because the Raiders are an afterthought. They're in Canberra. They're kind of out of the way. They do have their issues. They've got like problems signing players. But the blokes they've signed are weapons. And what they've shown over the years is they're really good at picking out diamonds in the rough. Like, they've got Matty Nicholson from the UK. They've done that yet again. I've picked up this Savelio Tamale kid from the junior grades in St. George, and he looks like he's been playing first grade for 5 years. He's so good. But we seem to, not to mention we've got Fogarty playing at the moment, and I'm sure we can get to that situation. But he's playing great footy. And what was annoying me is, like, I was listening to a couple of the other media podcasts. I can name and shame them too. Like, there's good old, and I had a bit of a beef with Charlie White from James Graham's podcast, because he's basically come out and said at the start of the year, and Graham did too. So if you pick the Raiders to not make the 8, I'll give you a bit of stick. But the ones who picked us to go from night to the spoon, they're the ones that can kind of kiss our whole ass. Because, like, I listened to Charlie White talk up the Titans and the Raiders, and what he said about the Titans was something like fast outside backs, good forward pack. They're going to make the 8. And then he talks about the Raiders, wooden spoon. I'm like, fast outside backs, really good forward pack. What are you talking about? And, you know, I would take our halves. The other thing is, the narrative was, there's a lot of these young blokes going to go through second year syndrome. Guys like your Ethan Strange, Savage has been around a little bit longer than that, but he had a really breakout year last year. And they're like, these guys might go through a second year syndrome. And I'm like, how come players at other clubs are only expected to go into higher heights, but the Raiders are meant to go into second year syndrome? I'm like, you guys are just looking for someone to pick for your wooden spoon. And because the Raiders are a bit of an afterthought and they're not one of your mates' clubs in Sydney, you've gone, that's an easy one we can do without getting anyone kind of pissed off at me except for Raiders fans. So the ones who picked us for the spoon, it's a long year. Like, we've got a few really tough games coming up, but it's a long year. And yeah, I think we are showing that we are ahead of schedule in this rebuild. And these young blokes that Ricky's putting faith in are actually repaying it.
I think your heat's better than I gave you credit for. Honestly, right now, if you told me you'd have 3 wins, fine. Anything more than that would be a bonus. I picked the Warriors in round 1. Canberra just absolutely came out firing in Vegas. They were so good. Forward pack's ridiculous. Like Joseph Tarpany is a top 3 prop in the game. Payne Haas is 1. If you want to argue he's number 2, that's absolutely fine by me. No arguments. Top 3 at worst. Matt Timoko, I made a bit of a joke last year because Kailero got the better of him twice, right?
Yeah.
I can't name another centre who's got the better of Timoko twice. Like that was just Cronulla was just on
and Kailero is a special player. Like he's a lot. The thing about Timoko, and I love Timoko, he's not the biggest center. So when you get a really big athletic center on him, it becomes a bit of a battle for him defensively. But he's also just as likely to make that center look foolish with a bit of footwork and like being a, like a little cannonball because he's a bit smaller, but he still breaks tackles like nothing else.
Hudson Young, though, for me, you look at the Dally M's and Will Kennedy's on top, and that's fun for me. Hudson Young's probably the form player of the competition right now.
He's so good. And he's in, like, we've always kind of rated him, but he's actually now in the best form of his career. And that's saying something because he was already one of our best in previous years, but he is now in the best form of his career. And you want to know who I reckon people are sleeping on a little bit? Well, there's a couple actually, but I mean, Horsburgh last year was out of shape going into the season. He'd had a 3-week suspension and he had an attitude issue and he was basically off to the Tigers. He was gone. He was gone. And then Ricky started playing him in first grade. They made up and now look at him. He is playing brilliant football. But the other one is Josh Papali'i. Like, do not sleep on this guy. He doesn't do as many minutes now, but his contributions on the field are still so good. And when you've got, like, we have a proper rotation now of Papali'i, the old dog, Tarpany, who is in absolute prime, Horse, who is finding prime again, and we've got this young bloke, Adam Mariota, who isn't quite on that level of the other guys yet, but he's not shirking his work. And we've got a couple of guys in Cup as well. So we've got a front row rotation that can go with anyone in the comp.
It's a good team. I'm happy to eat a bit of crow. I mean, I don't wish anyone bad. I don't wish anyone particularly good other than the Sharks, of course.
Fair.
But Canberra, mate, I love watching when the Green Machine play well, they play well. The last person I'm going to shout out is Sebastian Chris. This is a bloke who a couple of years ago we thought, oh, he's a decent player. Then we thought, no, he's going on the scrap heap. Right now, mate, if they were picking the Kiwi side, Kailero's out, Matt Timoko, you guys might have both the bloody Kiwi centers.
You know, the kicker is I had some advice for Seb Chris, not personally, obviously, like he cares what I think, but there was a way that he was playing that used to drive me nuts. I didn't think he was a great fullback. He went to fullback for a little while as a stopgap measure, and I didn't think he was a great fullback, but he had this thing where he'd kind of try and do what Jordan Rapiner used to do, where he'd come to the line, jink and go sideways, and Rapiner used to make it work because he was so hard to tackle, even standing still. But Seb Chris needed to learn straight away that he's big, he's strong, he's fast. He should be hitting that line at pace. He shouldn't be stopping and jinking and trying to do the wrapper. He should have been doing his own thing. And this year he's been doing it. And he is having a standout year. And I said that last year. I'm like, this guy has all the tools. He just has to change the way he plays a little bit. And I don't know if someone else has heard that and got to his ear, but I'm taking credit for it, is what I'm saying. I'm taking credit for the rejuvenation of Seb Chris.
That works, and that's what we do. And mate, thanks for jumping in. You're about to hit record on your show. Where can people find the Green Machine podcast?
Mate, Green Machine podcast is all over the place. It's on, iTunes, Spotify. They're obviously your main ones, but most good kind of podcast providers, if you look up Green Machine podcast, you'll find it pretty easy. Or Facebook. That's a good one too.
Thanks so much, mate. We're back here on this special edition of Rugby League Outlaws, and I'm joined by a great friend of the show, my good mate Nathan, who unfortunately is a Manly fan. That is a beautiful hat, all the same. Mate, let's talk Bulldogs. They're flying right now. They are top of the table. I said they were playing a powerful game, a powerful brand of football. almost perfect, defensively stout. What's your read on the Bulldogs right now? Because if you ask any of their fans, they're going to go undefeated and win the whole thing.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I thought that they were going to drop out of the 8 this year. I thought they were going to be kind of like the Warriors last year, where they had that really good kind of out of nowhere season and went really well, probably exceeded expectations a little bit. But then probably they didn't really, as far as I can tell, make a lot of moves during the off season. I know they got Leo Thompson for next year, but there probably wasn't a lot there that they added. So I thought that there were a risk of dropping back out once teams kind of sort of sussed them out a little bit more. But obviously that has been wrong big time. They're definitely a top 8 side. I think the question now is, are they a legit top 4 side? And can they actually win the comp? I think as far as legitimate claims go, I think the defence definitely is legit, 100%. They're averaging about 8.2 against at the moment, which is elite. Has their opposition been elite? Don't know. I think Sharks are probably the only good team they've faced that you'd say are a risk of top 4. Other than that, you're running through. You got Saints, Gold Coast, Eels, Sharks, Newcastle, Bye, Souths. Even this week against the Broncos up there is going to be a good test, but no Walsh. So they've had a sweet run. Saying that, it's not like they're scraping by. They're demolishing sides. So, look, I think I'm probably 80% there saying they're legit, but probably just need to see them come up against 2 or 3, really good, grinding me up big-time games on a Friday night before I take them all the way serious. I still think they're probably one really good spine player away from, being taken seriously as a comp threat. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, they've done all they can. As you said, they haven't scraped past. They beat Cronulla pretty handily at Cronulla, minus their best 2. They haven't conceded. Like, Kaylee is the only bloke that scored a try against them in what feels like a month, and I think it may legitimately be close to a month now.
Yeah.
It's not like they're beating like the Titans 30-28 or anything. Nah. They're clubbing sides, and I can see the excitement. Don't get me wrong. If you ask me right now who the best team in the comp is, I still think it's Melbourne.
By far.
In terms of what they've done on the pitch, the Bulldogs cannot have done anything more. And I don't wish anyone good. I don't wish anyone bad. I just want Cronulla to beat everyone. That's selfish. It is what it is. The Bulldogs are flying now, and their fans are eating it up. We saw 65,000 people turn up. And there was a good turn up of South fans, but the Bulldogs outnumbered them 3-1. They're enjoying. They had a wow of an entrance the other day. People call it the NBA entrance. I didn't get the reference. It's not my sport. You probably know better than I do. But I saw some people go on and tell the Bulldogs fans to calm down. They haven't beaten anyone yet. They haven't won a comp. They're celebrating like they won a comp. Mate, they're whatever and over. They're undefeated. Let the guys enjoy.
Yeah. There's definitely a sense of that. Like, social media ban is one thing, but I don't really begrudge any fan base from supporting their team and getting happy when their team's won, and especially after a bit of a period where they were down in the dumps and they were down there big time for a while. Like, obviously, Desi doing a bit of damage over there with the cap, and then huge turnover. It's like they turned their roster over about 3 times. We all probably had a bit of a chuckle when they were after what seemed to be every utility in the comp there. But look, it's worked. It's definitely worked. I don't think there's been a player come onto the market for the last 3 seasons they haven't been involved in talks with. Like I said, I agree with you. No, not begrudging the fans. As far as their chances, though, I don't believe Gus. I think they're after DCE. I think he's a big fan of him, and I think like he's seen as maybe the last piece of the puzzle. I think that you can't have Sexton and Connor Tracy in your spine if you want to win a comp. I think like they're serviceable for sure. Are they going to give you over the hump? Probably not, especially when Burton's having a game like he did the other day against South, even though they smashed him. He had a bit of a shocker there. So you add DCE. That's an upgrade, even at his age. And then you can probably have Tracy at the back, or you can have Sexton, who's done a really good job, but probably needs something a bit better at the back, maybe a bit more of a ball player. I think that's the last piece. saying that, fans trying to, give them hell for celebrating and carrying on. Like, obviously, the old saying is that, there's certain teams when they're going well, the comp's going well. I think that the Bulldogs are one of those teams. You saw that in spades on the weekend, 65,000, whatever, regular season record crowd. Do they sort of push it to the limit sometimes after the games? Sure. But look, I think it's all pretty in good spirit, I think I think it definitely adds a layer to the competition when the Bulldogs are going well, just through sheer sort of their crowds and the enthusiasm around their games and just the talking points that surround them when they're doing well as well, because they obviously, like every good team, kind of when they become a little bit of the flavour of the month for hating on them, they're kind of up there now and they're drawing a lot of attraction. So I guess some fans are trying to nitpick holes into how to bag them. There's not really a lot there at the moment, other than probably the legitimacy of their opposition so far and maybe their fans being on a bit. But, good luck to them. I'd be doing the same if it was Manly, that's for sure.
Absolutely right. From the penthouse to the other house, Newcastle Knights. I do a weekly power rankings and I like to stir up a little bit of grief, but I'm telling you right now, Newcastle are the worst team in the competition. I have no idea how Adam O'Brien sees this year out.
Oof, mate. That's all I've got to say about Knights. It's funny. Adam O'Brien is one of these, and the Knights pretty much, I reckon, over the last half decade, they've just been one of these sides / coaches that nobody rates. Every preseason, everyone's like, they're crap. He can't coach. But guess what? They've made 4 of the last 5 finals. And when you hear that, you go, what? And it's true. So 2022, since he came on board, 2020, I think 2022 is the only year they haven't made the finals. This year, it's not looking great. They just can't score. That's the thing. They just can't score. Pre-season, there was a bit of chatter around saying, why do people rate Manly and not the Knights when really our faults are the same? And I'm not saying Manly's up there at all, but the thing is with the Knights, when Ponga's out, just like when Turbo's out, but the Knights just don't have anything else. They just don't have anyone else that even looks like they can create a try. They got 2 legitimate game breakers. They got Best, they got Ponga, but those halves, I honestly don't think they've got a NRL caliber half at the club. Sharp is a good player, but he's not a 5'8", not yet at least. He's a ball runner. He needs to be at fullback, but you got Ponga, you stick him on the wing and he can create something there. But I know they're trying to move Hastings on, moving heaven and earth to try and work something out there. And, they paid, I don't even know, what's the term for above top dollar? Because that's about 3 levels above that is what they paid for Dylan Brown. And then, so, and I'll die on the hill that they shifted the landscape as far as what halves are getting paid with that deal, but they obviously need it. Whether he's the guy to steer them around and create tries and play make for them, I don't know. I think he's a second banana, not a main dude. But yeah, they just cannot score. So he's got a lot of work in front of him. As far as he sees out the season, look, was it 2 seasons ago? He was basically dead man walking there, and then they won 7 out of 8 or whatever to finish the season, and they ended up extending him. It's funny because a lot of Isaac Moses coaches seem to have that same situation. You look at Todd Payton, you look at Anthony Seibold, you look at Adam O'Brien, they all just kind of skim along that kind of pass mark that just gets them kind of into the next contract, but they never really truly succeed. They might have a spike in a top 4 finish or, a good run, but they just kind of dip in and out. They have that in common. And Knights, they've got a lot of his clients there, and their recruitment manager is big time too. So I think he might be safe for now. But yeah, another month of this, and I don't know. It's gonna be really tough. But yeah, what do you think?
I think the Knights are disgusting. I don't think Cronulla played that well, and they walked them. Not for 1 second did I feel like Newcastle were going to beat us. And as a Cronulla fan, that's very rare. We rocked up and we played okay, and we're 16-0 up in a heartbeat. And I mean, I know they had a 50-50 call go against them. Fletcher Sharp ran through, but Will Kennedy watched him walk past. He knew he was going to get called back. You're right, though. They don't have an NRL quality half. I rate Fletcher Sharp. I think he's going to be a freak. But you cannot put him with who they're putting with.
No.
2 years in a row now, they've named Haas combination and changed it every few weeks. They don't have an NRL halfback in that system. Jack Cogger's probably the closest, but Jack Cogger, the second he left Penrith, became, you might as well put you and me out there, mate. And I'm not happy. You know, neither of us have got many professional football games under our belts. I think that if you're going to move a young kid who's not a half and make him a half, you have to put him next to a Cherry Evans. You have to put him next to like a high quality leader. There's talk, and I think Andrew Jones floated this, that they're going to try and follow the Storm way and pick 3 fullbacks in their spine. That's okay when you got Pappenhausen, Hughes, and Munster. 3 fullbacks are also at the Titans, and they're sitting wherever they are, and they're hopeless. They haven't got a kicking game. Yeah. They haven't got a genuine half. That's where I see Newcastle going. If I'm then, I'm getting rid of O'Brien. I'm bringing in whoever, and I'm saying you and you go, because they just looked so subpar the other day. I have to make this joke, but Newtown probably would have beaten that Newcastle team.
Yeah, and look, the main thing is their defence has dropped right off too. So they were clear number 2 behind the Dogs in defence there probably for the first month and a half. Like, they couldn't score, but they were at least keeping sides, down as well. Last 3 weeks, over 20 against the Sharks, in second gear, over 30. So that's dropped right away too. They just look like there's so much pressure on them, and they know their exact situation. Their training must be rough. Pongo's just don't know what's happened there. He's somehow out of the game now. He's not as involved as he was. At his best, he can look like the best player in the world, let alone the comp. So, but he's down as well. The whole team, it's grim. I don't know, like, if the way Parra was on the weekend with Mitch Moses back now, there were whispers they were trying to get Dylan Brown over there a little bit early if they could move Hastings on. Like I said, I don't know if they've invested wisely there. You're going to do that type of deal, you could pretty much get any player you want. Is he even in the top 10 halves in the comp? I don't know. Like I said, I joke around and I say it's a little bit funny. I call him Kiwi Luke Brooks. Now, he's obviously like a lot. I think he's a lot better than Luke Brooks, but like, he's the kind of player that you can't give him too much responsibility, in my opinion. Like, if he's not the main guy, he's the guy who runs off the main guy. And he's really good at that. Like, they made a grand final with him doing that. But is he the guy that's going to set everything up and put players in position and kick to the corners and playmaking, that type of thing? He hasn't done that yet in his whole career. So, look, I guess they got a lot of time to find out because he's there for 10 years. So, Knights looks grim. Are they spoon? Geez, I thought Dolphins for a while, but obviously they've picked things up. It could be spoon. It could be spoon for Knights because Parra all of a sudden looks good. Tigers, who knows with Tigers? Like, look, I'd never count them out. But Knights, I don't know. What do you think as far as faves for spoon? Knights?
I think Newcastle by a mile. I think Parramatta with Mitch Moses look a different team, and there's too many wins in like the Dragons and stuff, who I had in the preseason. As they've just shut me down. It wouldn't surprise me if a team just drops off the face of the earth, but they're going to have to fall a long way to fall below Newcastle. But, mate, speaking of low, and I love kicking them while they're down. You mentioned it. Ponga, not in the greatest form. Reece Walsh, terrible form, injured for 4 weeks from this Origin 1. Right now, if I'm picking the Queensland Origin team, well, it's Laurie Daly, so you're a chance at beating New South Wales. But I'm worried about what in the past has been their best spot, fullback. I'm picking that hammer.
Yeah. I wouldn't have said he's had the best year either, other than a couple of games. You're right, though. Walsh is probably – I don't think he was going to be picked regardless of the injury. With Walsh, I'm getting a bit of Anthony Milford vibes there, I think. Like, he's obviously way better. He's obviously way better, but that's a bit of a spicy little nugget for you there. But, came like just – first couple of years at Broncos, just like out of the gates, boom, who's this kid new kid on the block? He could be the best player in the comp, and then just fades to black. That's not gonna happen with Walsh, obviously. But like, I think with Walsh, he just is out there running around like a chook without his head. He needs someone to calm him down. Like he just is playing well in front of himself. Like everything's 100 mile an hour, and experience is going to come. He's only still a kid. He's probably up in Brisbane there, just living the life. Like, you can imagine him on the scene out there at the clubs and that. Like, he'd just be the man. But yeah, like, he needs to slow down and think about what he's doing a little bit more before he actually does it. For every good play he makes, he throws 2 passes over the sideline, or he kicks it out on the floor, or he just jumps to catch a ball when it's unnecessary and he'll drop it, and just things like that. So I think, like, he's young, he'll get experience. This year, though, probably, look, it's never a good time to get injured, but maybe he needs a tiny reset. And someone to imagine getting his ear a little bit there, just to, like, his captain said it to him best the other year. He said, you need to slow your brain. And that was in the middle of the field, if you remember, on the telecast. And that's exactly right. He just needs to chill out a little bit, and I think he'll come good for sure. He's just so electric and can just break a game wide open. But I wouldn't have had him in this year's Origin team if we were picking it today, regardless of the injury. I think Ponga is a certainty as long as he's fit at fullback. If Walsh is injured and not being considered, you're not going to leave Ponga out of the side. He's like literally one of the top 5 players in the comp. He might be out of form, but plenty of these players, like, they're so good. They play for their club team who's going like a bastard. They come into the Origin environment around other good Origin players, and all of a sudden, boom. The Queensland are famous for it. Like, how many years has their whole team been out of form at Clubland, and then they come into the Queensland side, and all of a sudden they're 5 times the player? Boyd, Gagai, these guys, they're famous for it. So I think Ponga would be one of the first players picked, if I'm being honest. Hammer, he can go in the centre there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who's the other centres for Queensland. Val for sure. Like, he's tidied things up a bit lately too. He was a bit of a bloody turnstile there at the back end of his Cowboys career, but he's been all right at Dragons. And then Gagai, if he's got anything left, he'd probably be on the wing there. And then Cobbo on the other one. So, yeah, I think, I think Ponga, I think he's more of a victim of his circumstance at the moment as far as Knights as a whole. Probably got a bit of rope with him because he's just a proven performer, and then he can just go like that and turn it on and be the best player in the comp for 2 months straight. So as far as Walsh goes, injury or not, I wouldn't have him in the side.
I love that. Callum Ponga will play if he wants to play, because there's talk that he's going to say no thank you and change his allegiance to Kiwis. If that happens,
okay.
I don't know if it will. I'm not saying it will, but that is the discussion currently had. I think they need to change his mind and get him named for Queensland, because I think he's undoubtedly the best option. I threw the hammer out. There's a bit of a laugh. Wouldn't shock me. Otherwise, you're looking at maybe an AJ Brimson. And that, as much as I love Brimson, makes me laugh, because I think you can name probably 6 or 7 for New South Wales that are better than that. But, mate, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. I could literally talk all night. It's like, try and stop me. It's about midnight now. But, mate, can I get a quick certainty this weekend? What's a game that is 100% going to go the way you see it? Someone going to score a try? Just give me something that cannot miss.
I hate saying it, but it's Penrith. It's they're going to absolutely obliterate us up the middle. Yeah, just I don't know if you've seen our pack lately, but especially with Harvard over there picking wingers on the bench and that, like, it's just, yeah, we're going to get absolutely run through. Jake is on the back end of things for sure, but he's definitely the glue in that pack that keeps everything together, and he makes a lot of tackles for some of our other middles. Like, we've already lost Paseka, who's, I think, the only prop that would make another top 8 side from our pack we have. Got a bits and pieces, kind of journeyman. I think, SST's been pretty good. He hadn't played for about 2 years. But Penrith, look, they got their mojo back against Roosters, didn't they? And God, that's maybe all they need now to go on with it. I was loving them down there, 5 in a row, 6 in a row, whatever they could have been looking at. But yeah, now everybody, the alarm bells are ringing, whether they're back or not. So we'll see. But I hate to say it, but I guess the pessimist in me is saying my lock for this week will be Penrith.
You heard it here first. Penrith by 50. Williams.
Talk to me, Dan. Let's talk black, white, and blue.
Some black, white, and blue, mate. And a big thank you to Williams on my right or left, however it shows up on screen. Joining us from our good mates at the ET Stand podcast. Mate, let's just jump straight into it. We beat Newcastle. How do you feel after the game?
Twofold. Thank you for having me. I've been listening to you guys for years. Obviously, not as long as Sam, but you guys have not quite been the OG there. But you're pretty close to it. Was it 2016, 2017 you guys started?
2018, the Matt Moylan year.
It was Hail Matt Moylan, 2018.
Matt Moylan.
And one other thing, I don't know how you guys aren't running with the Only Fins tagline yet, but we'll leave that to everyone's imagination.
Write that down.
No. Yeah, you and Terry were talking about it back in round one. I was looking to run a bit of a campaign, #OnlyFins. But Newcastle, obviously good to get the win. The game was what it was. We had a mountain of possession in the first half, got out to a 16-0 lead. I thought we were lucky not to concede that try to Fletcher Sharp. I thought I was watching the Fox coverage with a mate who's a Knights fan. I only saw in the highlights I was watching today that obviously Gus was blowing up. If you're watching Channel 9, I think it was a poor read by Nico. Sure, the hole was exploited. Sure, the rules are rules, but I would have been pretty dirty if it went the other way around. And then obviously your mate Stone Street scoring right on or close to halftime to get the important, as Boldo would call it, third try. I don't think that principle holds up too often. But anyway, good to get 16-0 up. They brought one back with, was that Marju there? They had a shift to the left and he did get through past Ramian and Hines there in summary. And then the second half, we took advantage. We could have almost had 3 tries when, again, Schiller was in the bin. I think a bit of a harsh call. Rules are rules. But what they went up for the Hiroti potential try, gave it a no try. Obviously, he was held up. Then play went on for a minute or so, and then they come back and he gets sin bin. Shaw was a high shot. Shaw, Hiroti had stuff coming from his head. Didn't go for HIA. I don't mind that. Obviously, he was as deemed not necessary, but Hiroti was diving down. Schiller had kind of come across. I think that there was talk of maybe that some parts of the internet which were just blasphemous. But anyway, Wilson potentially being sin bin as well for that accidental head clash. It's like, come on, people. Anyway, so a lot of words. We almost we got the 2 tries there, the intercept, and then the grubber, Brayley running from dummy half and picking out Ponga in the line. Which was good to see, and Kennedy backing up. I thought Kennedy could have backed up a little bit more in that game. There was a couple of times where your mate, you guys have been given Kafusi a caning, which has been fair. We'll get further into him in a sec. I'm just rambling here, but I thought that if Kennedy trailed Kafusi or AFB a few times, especially in the first half, we could have had a few more line breaks, but is what it is. And then, unfortunately, Rudolph dropped the ball there. That could have been 3, which probably would have been our best stint with a player in the sin bin ever, because normally we concede and just go to poo, right, when that happens. So anyway, that sealed the game. Sharks have done their best to lose it from there in the past, but not to be. A few late tries, and the internet was blowing up with that, but I'm taking it. If I'm going to summarise it in one line, take the 2 points, move on.
I love it. Honestly, the fact that we're sitting here, and I was guilty of this, and saying, geez, the Sharks didn't put the foot on the throat and they conceded a few late tries. We won by an absolute monster of points. Not for one single second did I feel in any risk of losing that game. We're getting a bit greedy. I feel guilty for saying, it wasn't a great performance. We just put Newcastle on their hands and knees and whacked them in front of the home fans. What more do we want, honestly?
Another big home crowd. We went up there. They whacked us 2 years ago in front of a big home crowd. The tables were turned there. They had a stronger team. They were on a run. But I think I suppose we made them. We scored when it counted. We had a man of possession. We weren't kicking on the last. That was obviously some kind of direction there. The one time we did kick, Brayley had a backpedaling line and saw that there was no fullback at home. So that was the time to kick. But what we died in the last almost a record number of times, I think it was 5 or 6 I counted. But
what do you make of that? That has to be a direction.
Oh, definitely direction. I mean, the Dogs did it back in the day when they were terrible. I still think the Dogs aren't much top this year. I think they'll finish top 4, but they're not much top. But that's a side point. But the Dogs were doing it back in 2016 under Des, and they finished 7th or so. Don't give away a 7 tackle set, sure, but you've got to chance their arm and try and create repeat sets, I think. And so I'm not sure why specifically Newcastle. It's not like they have Smalling goals. I don't know if it didn't seem very windy. It was warm conditions. So I suppose maybe it was keeping energy in the tank. Maybe you don't want that chance to be there, that you have to backpedal, because the 7 tackle set, you're going to be defending an attacking kick at the other end. So Yeah, I mean, we had 60 plus % of the ball in the first half, and sure, we had 3 tries to show for it. Others were saying there should have been more, that Newcastle aren't a great team, but Newcastle had been smashed by Tigers a week before, and I think they were up for it. Fitzy did say that in the press conference too, that he felt that the Knights were physically there where previously they haven't been. So they're not a great team, but we'll, I don't know, take the and there's flat track bully accusations as well. I think that they did what they needed to do. Obviously, fatiguing, travel, all that stuff. I think, I'll take the win, because it could well have been, after we lost to the Raiders and the Dogs, quite easily we could have lost to Manly. Quite easily we could have lost that one, and you're looking at 4 in a row. And Penrith talk is happening, which I think as well, the chat about Penrith being completely done is a bit early as well. I'm rambling here again, but I think that's too early, given 2015, for example, we lost our first 4 straight and should have finished top 4. Penrith pumped the Roosters on the weekend. If they get a run together, they can quite easily finish top 8 and maybe even push for top 4. So it's still possible.
Penrith right me, mate. I hope they stay bad, and I hope Origin ruins their season, because honestly,
hopefully,
I want to meet them in the finals. Like I just straight up, I'm extremely selfish.
Yeah, I agree. If Penrith make the finals, I think even if they're bottom 5th to 8th kind of thing, I maybe from there it might be too hard for them, but they're gonna cause some upsets or make life difficult for people. So yeah,
I want to run into Newcastle. They won't make finals. I'm calling it now. They are probably the worst team in the competition. But mate, a lot was made about Newcastle not being able to score. Now they had a few late tries. That Greg Marju just had a worldly game. He was hard to handle. Overall, though, they've been told all week that they suck. They got dusted by the Tigers. They didn't leave Newcastle. They stay there. Every time they went to the supermarket, I guarantee you some smartass was saying, you're going to score a point this week. They came out and absolutely they were up for it. Cronulla weathered the storm early, and let's be honest, it could have been 30-0 in that first half. It probably should have been 40 or 50. And we're sitting here saying, it wasn't a great performance. I know teams that would literally kill for performances like Cronulla are having. Where do you think we sit right now after what are we 4 and 3?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we sit probably where we are on the table right now. 6th or 7th, and I think so. We've still got a few players with injury cloud. So Fitzy was talking about Kafusi having a syndesmosis issue and playing busted and a finger surgery that he had last week and then still played, or 2 weeks ago. There's all the talk about the flu and stuff that's there and the amount of travel. Yeah, the Raiders have had the same amount of travel, and they've been I wouldn't say up and down. They've overachieved so far. They could well continue doing that. But I think we're thereabouts. I think for example, if we played Melbourne this week, I think we'd be heavy outsiders, and rightly so. If we played, who else is informed? The Bulldogs, obviously, they showed us up, and I think they would do the same again. But I think that most, especially the bottom half of the competition, I think we can, I suppose, account for even with all these issues. It'd be interesting to see if and when Rudolph's got an ankle injury. Who else have we got? There's a few other kind of lingering issues there, which early in the season, I suppose, is not ideal. Yeah, but if we get through the Origin period, I don't think anyone's going to be playing Origin, but I think at the moment we're where we need to be. So turn around, win again this week. Hopefully it's going to be tough against the Tigers, but win and then we can kind of build from there. Magic round obviously will be tough with Moses back. They showed what they could do on the weekend with 3 quick tries while a Tigers player was in the bin. So yeah, the draw is more tricky than people saying, because everyone goes, "Oh, Sharks draw is great. It's easy." Each game, Tigers got a point to prove. All the chat about Galvin and everything else there, and then the Eels, obviously, the chat about Riles and Moses. So there is we're not quite at Panthers level where everyone's up against us, but everyone kind of looks at us still, regardless of how well or bad we're going, as a game that can play themselves back into form, and that's what we're kind of up against. And then you're right, the Knights, I lived up there for 6.5 years, and the public, they're proud Novocastrians. I can't quite do the Ray Warren impersonation, Novocastrian, and they I suppose they don't give their footy team too much poo. But when they do, obviously Jared Mullen copped an absolute hiding from some fans when he was, I suppose, stealing a wage for a while, or perceived to be back in about 2015, 2016-ish. So, they would have been copping a bit during the week, and they went how long without scoring? And it was going to be a record for the most Knights matches where they hadn't scored more than 10 points until we conceded with a minute to go. So, Yeah,
It'll be nasty.
it was a
Rub it
tougher
in.
game than expected.
Mate, this weekend, I think, will be a tougher game, but it simply has to be. We'll talk about that in 1 second. A player, you mentioned Kafusi earlier. I wrapped him. I thought Brayley was tremendous this weekend. I don't know how Nico Hines didn't get a Dally M point, but that's another.
True.
Another one. Will Kennedy leading the Dally M's, mate. If you told me that in the preseason, I would have called you crazy. Maybe the man of steel in the Super League. I think you go over there and be the best player in the competition. Will Kennedy,
Definitely.
not the finished product by any stretch. He's not Tommy Turbo. He's never going to be. But in terms of what we needed this year, yes, there are some games where I get very frustrated. But my word, he couldn't have done much more. Sam asked me, and I'm going to ask you, if Cronulla go in tomorrow and say, Will Kennedy, here's a 2-year deal, are you giving it to him or are you pulling it away at the last minute?
Nah, absolutely. I think a few weeks ago, maybe a different story, but absolutely 2-year deal, especially with, as I think I'm stealing a bit of yours and Terry's content here. I know you were talking about Ison a few weeks ago. He's been set back a year. He's obviously still the future, but Kennedy, I think that, I don't know if it's contract negotiations or contract pressure or just the fact that, he's getting... He made his debut in 2019 in a horror show against the Panthers at home. We somehow won that one, and he's, what are we now, 6-7 years into first grade. He's starting to mature. Yes, he's not a turbo, but let's say the 7 and 8 out of 10 performances are becoming more regular, where previously they'd be only a couple a year. 2021 was a standout. I know Terry was talking about that last week, about him having quite a few good matches there. It's good to see him getting some consistency. It's safe under the high ball. I'd definitely give him 2 years. And on the weekend, I don't think I wouldn't give him my 3 points. Not any discredit for him, but I just think there was a few others that stood up more. Yeah, right. Nico was taking the line on with a bit more confidence, which was good to see. And a good, I suppose, 1-on-1 beating of a defender to set up the first try for Kafusi when he took the line on. So, but Kennedy, definitely 2 years. And I have no intel in that space whatsoever. I'm not sure if Sam did, but nothing's been mentioned in the media. It'd be good to see if something happened there.
It will be. I don't think it's far off. I said in the preseason, I give him to Magic Round. And he's done everything he can. He's literally leading the Dally M's. Now, do not get me wrong. I think Hudson Young's been the form player of the competition. You're not going to get points for a second rower compared to a fullback. But Kennedy couldn't have done much more. He's going to need to be on his best this weekend. Now, last year, before we played the Tigers, it's only the Tigers. Debut all the kids, will go out and flog them, and they absolutely took us apart at Leichhardt. This week, they've copped another round of, we know what's happened. Lachlan Galvin's been recalled, which I think personally is a good – I hate it as a Sharks fan because Adam Dewey's about half the player Galvin is. We're going to Leichhardt this Sunday afternoon, mate. How are we going to go against them pesky Tigers?
We've had some good wins of late there. So obviously 08 was a drought breaker there. We had a big win in 01, I think there. We had the win in 2019, the Gallen final round of the year field goal game, where I think if both teams went out and had a draw, we would have kicked the Broncos out. But I suppose match fixing isn't encouraged. Maybe if with the Serie A, we would have got away with it. Sorry, controversial for any Italian soccer fans. Sorry, guys. We should just park the bus. Last year we got obliterated there. And looking back at that one, and it was frustrating in the moment, but they got a lot of opportunistic tries. It was a different Tigers team, but one of them I think was a drop ball, quick turnover, and who was it? Their centre, Justin Olam, ran 30, 40 minutes to score. Another one, Appy pulled our pants down. Another one, Lachlan Galvin, I think it was one of his first grade matches, skipped around a couple of tired defenders and set up a try. So after Tommy put us on the front foot early, we definitely need to be up for it. The Tigers will have, I'd imagine, a sellout crowd. I'd imagine they would be looking for a point to prove, and it'll go one of two ways. I think they'll either play lights out football and we'll have our work cut out for us, or they might revert to type a bit from last year and poo the bed a bit. So hopefully the second, but there's a very real chance, and I'd give it probably 50-50 of the first happening. And not that I'm a betting man, but I'd imagine that I think they're $3 plus, gamble responsibly. That'd be a decent outside bet if you're looking for an upset this weekend. I think we need to be on.
Agreed. Cronulla can win, and they should win, let's be honest. But it's a sort of game, whereas if we're sitting here on Sunday night saying, is the Tigers out enthusiast, I'll be disappointed, but I won't be shocked. I have a controversial take on last year, which at the time I was so angry. Terry and I jumped straight on here and we recorded after the Tigers lost. Yeah. And he gave me a 3 swear limit, and I didn't use them to the last 3 words. I went to the gym and I bench pressed more than I've ever done. I was so angry to the point where I was embarrassed with myself. I went home and I thought, why am I letting these guys dictate my mood like this?
Yeah.
It's the last time we saw Sifa Talakai named in the centres. We saw a young bloke named Kailiro come in. I think looking back, that Tigers loss actually kickstarted us because we went on a run after. That said, I don't want to go on a run after a Tigers loss. I want to keep this run going. I want to go out there, and if you give me the exact same Newcastle game, we lead by 20 and they score a late try, I don't care. Bank the points.
Again, this one, just get the results. So I suppose we're just looking for incremental improvement. And I think this team still, because people are like, hey, we signed AFB, therefore we must make the grand final, right? It's not that easy. You got to get to the back end of the season. Yeah, well, we've all fallen into that trap, and I think if you'll see cross promotion, ET stand, you'll see I still put the Sharks in the top 4. Have I just put the mock on us? I think we're going okay. Have we got the ability to make the next step? I'm not sure. Have we got the ability to smash the Tigers this week? If we're in form, yes. I don't think we are in form, and I think we just need to keep doing enough to get by, as I suppose negative as that sounds, but it could be a game where I hate the term out enthused because people go, professionals got to be up every week. It's hard, right? They've been through so much travel. It's excuse, reason, whatever you want to call it. It will be tough if the Tigers show up and if the crowd gets involved. And as we saw last year, that's exactly what happened. And other times when we lost there, that's what happened as well. Or other big teams, I think the Storm have lost there Storm lost to the Tigers at Leichhardt a few years ago. So they got the ability to turn it on there, but they've also got the ability to get a bit of stage fright and I think that's what happened in 2019. So hopefully we just do enough to win and go from there, because you're right, it's a good position to be in.
Certainly is. Now, can I just get a quick score prediction? I'm going to put you on the spot. I always make a fool of myself with this, but it's your turn this week, mate. Sharks, Tigers. Let's do it.
Sharks, Tigers. We're going to go Sharks 22, Tigers 18. It's going to be close, but
I'll say 30 to 18. I like that. Mate, Galvin's going to score. Let's just chalk that up.
And I think that's the disappointing thing about this team. Like, Fitz teams apparently notoriously built around defence. I think during our run last year, we had some good defensive games, but then we also became leaky. I think this team's still a bit leaky in parts, and I think the Tigers will score at least 3-ish times. I don't even know what the forecast is, to be honest with you. It's been magic weather lately, but the weather today's been pretty ordinary. So if it's a mud fest, there it might be a bit different, but I think they'll score at least 3 times against our defence.
Beautiful, mate. And you're off to hit record now. Where can we catch you?
We're ET Stand. I'm sure you guys have seen us. We started, was it January last year? There's 5 of us who do sit in the ET Stand together. So apologies for anyone that's have to put up sitting near myself. Boulder, we're not quite the ivory tower like Sam. We're down on the lower tier there, and I'm in front. It's right on the drip line, so yeah, we do get very wet when it rains there often. But Boldo, I suppose it is. What did he call himself? He was the creator, kind of like the architect on the Matrix. The creator, and then there's myself, Franco, Lats, and Chris Kelly, who's been over at the wrestling fans over in Vegas at the moment. So his social media is all over that. And I think you got a photo with Dennis Rodman and the like. So that might get a shout out. Usually we cover like just a live show. So it's a live show every Tuesday night at 8:30, where we get a bit of fan interaction, just going, hey, here's the team list Tuesday. Here's the current, I suppose, social media chat. Here's a bit of a history corner for myself, because I'm a nerd in that way. And then we have a few other shows too. We have a live debrief after the game. And I know yourself and Sam get in on that too with your own products. But I think it's just great getting Sharks fans in and getting a hot take on what just happened. And then a few other random episodes too. So I put out a classic Cronulla Chronicle, which usually there's about 12 nerds that watch it. So thanks to those guys who do watch it, where I cover a classic game. Last week I covered the Noddy getting 3 intercepts against Joey back in 2003 win, which I quite enjoyed doing. And we've had you on a few times too, which has been great. So thanks for repaying the favour.
Mate, I'm absolutely everywhere. You cannot get rid of me. This guy right here knows his stuff. He's got a memory way better than mine. Make sure you jump on. But Sharks by plenty this weekend. Benny.
Dan.
Let's tip this weekend's round of rugby league. Now, mate, you're tipping on Terry's behalf this weekend, so no pressure at all.
Well, I can surely only improve. He's been doing terrible.
He has, but he will hold it against you forever. Trust me, I hear it every week when it comes to the draft. But let's get straight into it, mate. we kick off Thursday night with what I believe is the game of the round. Is the Broncos versus the Bulldogs. What are your thoughts?
Mate, I'm actually really excited for this game. Like they played last year. Dogs did blow them out a little bit up at Suncorp, but I've got a feeling this week will just be that little bit different. I think might seem weird saying this. A benefit for the Broncos could be having Reece Walsh out. He doesn't seem to have moved on in the last couple of years. He just seems to have stagnated that little bit.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout. I love what the Dogs are doing, but the Broncos have heard all last week that they are not Big Brother anymore. They're gonna lose, etc., etc. I think the Broncos are going to come out and look really, really good. Ben Hunt will lead them. In saying that, mate, I'm tipping the Dogs.
Yeah, you know what? If the Bronx get off to a really solid first 20, there's every chance that they can play themselves into the game. So I'm going to take the Broncos at Suncorp. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they get up over the Dogs and end the undefeated run.
Comes to an end. Beautiful. Moving on to what probably is the game of the round. Let's be honest. The Roosters and the Dragons, traditional Anzac Day clash. If it's not a sellout, it's going to be close, mate. This game, throw form out the window. This could be anything.
Oh, this 100%. This is like any sort of derby game. Form means nothing. As bad as your worst player is, they could be your best player on this day. It's always something very special. Like being at the pub watching it and just how quiet the pub is at the start of the game for the remembrance, mate. I do want to get to this game at some point because I just want to experience that. I'm quite jealous that we don't get to have this sort of experience for Sharks. But both teams are coming pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, the Roosters lost this weekend, but they've been good. And every time they've gone in as huge underdogs, they've come out to win. You know, I'm going to tip the Roosters because I think I know which way you're leaning. And we can't get this.
Yeah. No, I definitely think Dragon's going to win this. I think Flanagan's going to have a big game this week. I think he's going to set up a couple of tries, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets over the line as well. Love
it. Warriors, Knights. It's good to see New Zealand. I think they're going to Christchurch, which I thought was a little bit strange, but big crowd expected over there. Anzac Day game, 6 o'clock kickoff here, 8 o'clock over there. Warriors, Knights, mate. Can Newcastle outscore them, or we just move on and tip the Warriors?
If they outscore them, it'll be in reverse in this one. I think it's going to be a bit of a shellacking in this one. Warriors very unlucky last year on Anzac Day to lose to Melbourne to that freak try. Honestly, I think it's good that the Warriors are taking the games around New Zealand. You've seen the crowds they get in Auckland. It's good to take it around the country. And especially if they do get that South Island team that they're pushing for, I think for them to get that stronghold around the majority of the country could help them. And I see the Warriors running away with this one.
Could not agree more, mate. And then the main event on Friday night, Melbourne Storm, again, another traditional Anzac Day hosting duties. This time they play the Bunnies. I think this is another one we're going to talk very quickly and agree upon. But, mate, Melbourne are coming off an absolute awful second half last week. There is no way they don't come out and put a score on the Bunnies.
No. Even with the outs last week, I thought they'd do the Dolphins. But I also saw a stat today that South have never won in Melbourne. And that is definitely going to continue this week. And I think it could be a cricket score because Melbourne aren't going to lose 2 in a row. I don't think they've ever lost 2 in a row under Bellamy. And after getting done like that, it's not going to happen.
No, they come back and usually win the next game by like 30 points. So I expect that to continue. Mate, we're going to the 4X derby. You know, they call it a local derby because everything's local in Queensland. Cowboys and the Titans. Cowboys fresh off the bye. The Titans just hitting random. I could be convinced either way.
Mate, like you've said all season, Titans can concede 40 and score 40 in the same game. I don't know if this will be that sort of a game, though. I think this is going to be a tight contest. I don't think it's going to be high scoring, but I do think the Titans might get them.
I was actually leaning towards the Titans. I'll go to Cowboys just to keep it going, but look, the Cowboys are deserved favourites. The Titans got to work out where to play AJ Brimson. That's something I don't
100%.
But my word, they are just – Des Hasler is ruining that club. But, mate, this one will not ruin the weekend. Penrith Panthers, back in form, lost a few games. Now they've gone, hey, don't forget about us. Playing the Manly Sea Eagles at Combank Stadium. Another big crowd expected. Manly fans don't typically travel, but I think they might this week. Talk to me.
Look, I'd like to say this will be a great contest, a very even contest, but the way Panthers are starting to come back into form after having that massive slump, getting there 5 in a row, 5 losses, I just feel like Panthers are starting to hit their straps again and they're about to start a roll.
Yeah, they're back. I'm tipping Panthers. I think Manly.
Yeah, it's
Turbo is back, but in what capacity? Like, honestly, we've seen this guy come back 3 or 4 times and get injured again. I hope
he can come back out, play 15 minutes, and be gone again for the rest of the season. It's just.
It sucks to say that. Like, even in jest, you want the best players on the field. But when it comes
to I think they've brought him back because they feel like he can bring something to the team. But it's just, you know what I mean? It feels very. I'd rather have seen him take a few more weeks out, make sure everything's 100%, and then come back.
Yep, it's completely fair. Season might be gone, though, is the only problem. The Canberra Raiders, who we discussed earlier with their good mate Soulsy, having a wow of a season. They're playing the Finns, who 3 weeks ago were shot ducks. Now they're looking like genuine title contenders. I mean, they just blew Melbourne off the park. Canberra at home, Finns, can they keep it going?
Mate, honestly, you look at it, Finns are probably one of the most informed teams in the comp at the moment. And you look at the way they fought back against the Storm last week. At the end of that first half, watching it, I thought, okay, they're getting a little bit of a roll on here, and then Storm will move on. But they actually continued on with it and really did a job on the Storm that second half, and Storm were likely to get that consolation try at the end. This feels like a dark horse for match of the round, honestly, for me. I think this could be a really great contest, and honestly, might seem stupid to say, but wouldn't surprise me if this could be a golden point game. And I think with the form they've shown in the last couple of weeks, I know they're in Canberra, but Dolphins, mate, I just got a feeling about them this week.
I love it. I'll go Canberra just to mix it up again. Terry's either going to love you or hate you because we tipped a lot of different. Canberra playing exceptional football. I've eaten a lot of crow. I think it continues in the capital this week. But if we're sitting here on Sunday night talking about a Dolphins win, I'm not shocked at all.
Yeah.
Now, to our particular game of the round, this could legitimately be anything. The Tigers and the Sharks at Leichhardt Oval, which worries me as a Shark fan. Lachlan Galvin is back. Talk to me about that quickly, and then who wins the game?
It doesn't surprise me that he's back. They can't keep not picking him. But I think they missed him big time on Monday in that game against Parramatta. They missed him. I think they couldn't have played him on that game either way because the reception he would have got would have been horrendous. I don't know whether I can throw in this Dominic Mysterio sort of hate that you see in the wrestling in the last couple of years. I think it would be that level of just hatred. But I think having him come back, he's got a lot of things to prove. And at Leichhardt, I was there last year, and honestly, I'm taking the Tigers in this one.
I'm taking the Tigers because every time I tip the Sharks, they lose. Lucky Galvin makes the world of sense. As a Shark fan, I was disappointed to see him named. I wish they'd left him at Lidcombe. Obviously, that's good for the Jets because they're playing a pretty undermanned Tigers outfit. But, mate, thanks for joining in just quietly. Can I get a 100%? He's definitely going to score a try in any game. I don't care who it is. Who are you getting on to score a try this week?
Honestly, I'm taking Jermaine Asako for the Dolphins down in Canberra. I think and you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if his first try either.
I love it. I'll go my boy Samuel Stone Street. Benny, thanks for jumping on.
All good, mate. Happy to have joined.
Round of football. Thanks, everyone, for joining this week on this special virtual edition of Rugby League Outlaws. We'll be back to the normal format next week, but I just want to shout out all my guests tonight. Please check out. Everything will be in the comments. We've had a great night. I hope you have too. We'll be back next week on Rugby League Outlaws.